All right, it is December 17th, I believe is today.
Yes.
Of 2025. And I'm riding with Pops here. We're just doing a little bit of a road tour type thing, and we're just reminiscing. Well, he's going to be mostly reminiscing. I'm just here along for the ride to listen to the stories. But what'd you call it? The life and times of Ross Lee Baldwin?
That's it.
The life and times of Ross Lee Baldwin. So we just thought we'd capture some of the stories from his youth all the way up to the present, if he feels so inclined. And I'm hoping he'll be, regardless of how emotional or sensitive or maybe even embarrassing, because this isn't just a brag session, this is kind of a tell-all. Who knows if it'd ever turn into a best-selling book or a movie or anything like that. But there are some pretty fun stories I think we're going to tell. So we're parked here in Bountiful, just a little ways from Pops's current residence in the Bountiful Gardens 55 plus community, and we're going to start with a tree that he's pointing to. So I'm going to flip the camera here, and so it's this what is it, an oak tree?
It's a silver maple.
It's a silver maple. Okay.
And there's a bench underneath it. That silver maple ran by our carport. We used to climb that tree to get on top of the roof, and that's where our house was. We had 2/3 of an acre that ran down that fence line all the way down to this corner. It was a triangular lot. And this roadway that you see here in front of me was a railroad right-of-way for Bangor Railroad that used to go out to Lagoon and also on to Ogden.
So your backyard was
right there.
Was the train tracks, huh?
Yeah. In fact, 13 feet out of my bedroom window was the train.
At all hours of the day or night, huh?
Mainly, yeah. During the day, it was almost like a trolley originally that took passengers from Ogden to Salt Lake. But it also, at night, it ran freight. And you quickly got used to the sound of the train, and it wouldn't even wake me up. But if the train didn't run, I woke up.
It was too quiet, huh?
Yeah, too quiet. Now, we had fruit trees down that fence line. They were apricots, 3 apricot trees, 1 cherry tree, 1 apple tree, 1 pear tree, and then throughout the front yard, we had 5 peach trees, and we had 1 almond tree. And when my parents moved here and bought this property in 1940, it was just a blank lot. And they built a garage. And when I say a garage, it was just a garage. But that's where they all lived until when I was born, they added an addition. And the addition added 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. Prior to that, it had been a garage and an outhouse. So, and that we turned it into, my parents built it into a garden. My mother was not a great gardener, but she tried. And we had sheep at one point. We had goats at one point. We always had chickens, and we always had rabbits. And the rabbits and the chickens were raised basically for food. The goats were for goat's milk, because I had an older sister that had a problem with regular milk. So we had goats.
So do you still have that older sister?
Yes.
So was it Anna or Lois?
It was Anna.
Anna, okay.
Yep.
So just to back up real quick,
Yep.
The approximate coordinates here are what? 2nd West and?
1180 South, 200 West.
Okay. 1180 South, 200 West, Bountiful, Utah.
Yes.
And when you were born, the population of Bountiful was?
Right around 1,000.
Right around 1,000. I've heard it said, I don't know if I'm just making this up, but there was like a big to-do the day they hit 1,000 and changed the city sign to say population 1,000.
Yep, I'll show you where that sign went. because I watched them put that sign in.
So that was the urban folklore that obviously isn't folklore. I must have gotten that from you, that you saw them put that sign in of 1,000 people.
Yep. Powerful, 1001.
So you have two older brothers,
Yep.
Lloyd and Roy, and they're what, 13 and 10 years older than you, something like that?
Yes.
And then Lois, and then Anna.
Yes.
And then underneath you, younger than you have two sisters, Julia and then Nancy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so when they bought this house 7 years before you were born, they put up 4 walls of a garage, and so that would have meant 4 older siblings and both your parents living in that one-room schoolhouse of a and an outhouse.
Yep.
And then eventually they added 2 bedrooms, and if I understand correctly, it was mom and dad got 1 bedroom, the girls got another, and the boys still slept all over the place.
No, not exactly. Mom and dad had their room, which was also the living room.
Oh, okay.
And they had a folding bed that they would put down at night, and they'd put it up during the day. And then
like a Murphy bed kind of thing?
No, I wish they hadn't Murphy hadn't invented the bed yet. No, it was one of those folding ones like this.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Like a rollaway bed.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was a rollaway bed. Anyway, when they added the 2 bedrooms in the bathroom, one was the boys' room and one was the girls' room.
Oh, so your parents were the ones that were nice enough to stay out in the common area.
Well, everything was a common area. But yeah, we had us older kids, and then again, Nancy, Julia.
You qualify yourself as the older kids, huh? Just because you were in with the boys, huh?
Yep. I mean, I didn't have a bed until Lloyd went in the Navy in 1952. I slept on the floor, and we had bunk beds, and Lloyd was on top and Roy was on the bottom, and I was on the floor. The girls, Anna and Lois, had the other room, and they each had a bed. And then, when I was about 10 years old, Julia and Nancy came along, and then we added 2 more. We took in 2
foster kids
that were cousins of my dad, a few generations, because they were from the Baldwins that settled in Hawaii. And
in Hawaii, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
And they were the ones that were involved with the pineapples and a lot of things that happened over in Hawaii on the Big Island. And but this daughter, who had some type of a drastic disease that she couldn't take care of herself, but she had these 2 daughters, and their name was Kathy and Carol, and their last name was Kemner, Kemner, and they came to live with us, and so they got added to the girls' room.
Now, was there your dad had like asthma or something, right?
Yeah.
So in addition to the house, he built some little shack.
Yeah, he built what we called the shed. The shed was where Dad slept, Dad worked. He had his office in there, and it wasn't really big. It was 1 railroad tie wide by 1 railroad tie the other way, and it was stacked railroad ties, and then it had sheeting on the outside that were wood shakes, and it had 1 window that was a window that would prop up so you could get ventilation in there. But he had a precipitator installed there, which helped him breathe. Now today that would be like the oxygen machines that they have now. But this was a big machine, and it was a little bit noisy. That's the reason why it was out there. And that's where Dad lived up until we did an addition. We also had a big sand pile just to the side of it, which we spent a lot of time in that sand pile.
So you're saying that was your Nintendo, right?
Yeah,
you guys went out there and played in the sand.
We played with these little plastic cowboys and Indians, and then we also had little plastic soldiers.
Little army men, okay.
And later on, when we go downtown, I'll show you where the store was and where we used to ride our bicycles, and even before bicycles, tricycles, down to that store. You know, I'm of that generation where you got out of the house the first thing in the morning and you didn't come back until it was dark. And we went everywhere. Now, where we're parked right now across the street, this was an open field on the other side of the railroad tracks that was all fenced in, and it was open all the way from here, 2nd West, all the way down to 5th West. There was nothing but field.
Mm-hmm.
There was one, that field at one time, prior to us getting there, it had been a brickyard, but it had, they'd closed the brickyard. I never remember the brickyard being active. But there was one house out there, and it was a family that lived out there. He worked for Bountiful City Police, and he was a police officer, and they had 4 or 5 kids, and one of their daughters, her name was Dallas DeLand. When I was about 9 years old, we were over here in this field, and we were 3 or 4 of the neighbor kids, and I'll go through the neighborhood here for you in a second. But we were digging a deep, 4 to 6 feet deep, 6 by 8. We were building, one of our favorite things was building clubhouses. This one was going to be underground. And we were digging, and we were down about 4 feet. And there was D. Weininger, there was Dennis Reynolds, myself, and I'm not sure who else, but I think there was a 4th person there. But anyway, we've been working on this all day, and the DeLands had a couple of small children, and one of them's name was Heber DeLand, and he came over, and he was trying to see what we were doing, and D. Weininger kind of chased him off. And
you guys are how old?
We are 8, 9, and Heber is probably 4.
Okay.
So anyway, we chased him off, and we went back to work. And as we were getting back in, all of a sudden a shot rings out, and Dennis Reynolds grabs his butt. He gets shot in the butt. And what it was is Dallas, the older sister who was babysitting him, when he went back and said they're being mean to me, she came out and she was going to scare us. Well, she did scare us. The shot rang out, and Dennis took one in the cheeks. And I'm glad he did, because I was right across the excavation. If he hadn't been there with his butt sticking up, I would have very well taken it somewhere else on my torso. But so we carried.
So was it buckshot, like a
no? It was a 22 caliber shell. Anyway, we took him over to his house, which is up 2nd West. We'll go up 2nd West here in a minute, and he's laying there on the kitchen floor with his hole in his butt. Anyway, long story short, the police come, of course, and we all get a citation. And I mean, it was, what a show this was. They cited us for attempted murder and accessory to attempted murder, and just scaring the crap out of us. And then they made us go up to see this judge up in Farmington, which is the county seat. And that was quite an ordeal. Each of us had to go in one at a time and tell them what happened. And we all got told that, we're gonna set this aside, but if you ever do anything else bad, you're going to jail. And it was kind of a harrowing deal,
But it was the girl that showed up with a gun. Did she get hauled up there too?
oh sure. I mean, her father was a peace officer.
Oh.
I mean, he worked for Bountiful City. But that was one of the things. Then the other thing this big field over here provided was a place for horses. And one of the guys in the neighborhood who lived in that second house from the corner, D. Doler, who he and I were enemies about half the time and best friends the other half.
So you say second house from the corner, meaning his house is still standing?
Yeah, it's right there.
Because yours, the reason it's not there, it got lost to
When they made this
eminent domain, right?
Yes.
The city came in and said, we need your house, and bought out your house.
Yep.
And you were already, by that point, you were already married and gone, right?
No.
Oh, no.
No. Well, that happened when I was 12 years old.
Okay, for some reason I thought that was after you had already skipped town.
No, not yet. But anyway, over here on this corner, the corner house is Dennis Doler, my longest friend. I mean, he has been my friend forever. Doler was his cousin, D. Doler. And then the next house over was Ace's house. And they had a son that was from a previous marriage who was Craig Hummel. Craig Hummel was another one of our merry band. And Craig later, today he's a retired psychologist. And at one time he ran the Utah State Hospital psychology. And he's also the one that he and his girlfriend introduced me to your mother.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that later too. That's a good story. But anyway, we had horses over here. And the horses over here, one horse was my brother Roy's. His name was Pancho. And Pancho, he was not nice to me, but he obeyed my dad and he obeyed Roy, but he wouldn't obey me. And one of my memories of him was I was trying to saddle him so I could take him to go deliver newspapers, and he wouldn't let me catch him. And so I come back to the house and I remember that I was crying, and my dad came out and said, "What's the matter?" I said, "Pancho, every time I get close to him, he runs all the way to the end of the field. Then I have to walk all the way to the end of the field, and he does the same thing." Dad says, "Well, let me see what I can do." And he walked out of the back step, walked over to a fence post. Now there's a fence on that side and a fence on this side because the railroad's in between. But he walks over to this post and picks up a piece of 2x4 about 4 feet long. And he takes and he cracks that post as hard as he can swing. And he yells, "Pancho!" That horse
came right over.
Over. But he used to like, as I'm trying to saddle him, I had to always pay attention because he loved to step on my foot.
Oh no!
And he'd stand on my foot, and I'm kicking him, I'm punching him, I'm trying to get him off my foot, and it's just because he's ornery. Another one he liked to do, if you didn't pay attention, is he liked to reach around and bite you on the butt. Oh boy. Nip you on the butt, and that would leave a bruise that would last for days. It was a bugger. But we played in this field down here, and there used to be a little, what we referred to as the flooding ditch that went down the far side over here. And it formed as the creek went down there. It was going through this field, and the overgrowth, because of the water, it got very, very thick, and we used to play down there a lot, and we could also dam it off and really not get enough to swim in, but enough to splash around and have a good time. We lived pretty much here. There used to be a field behind these houses that was an alfalfa field, that was owned by a guy by the name of Mr. Brower. And we used to go out in that alfalfa field. We'd play football, we'd play baseball. Playing baseball in an alfalfa field was a little tough, but we worked it out. And he would come and scream at us, and we'd jump over the fence.
Now, your dad professionally was what?
His profession was a tool and die maker. He was a machinist, and he was a tinkerer and an inventor. And most of my life, he had an invention that was a ventilation for the toilet that would take the odors from a toilet and disperse them away from the bathroom, up through the wall, into the attic, and disperse them. There was no odor, and he called that a deodorol, and he attempted to patent it. But that was what he did most of my life.
If I recall, he drilled a hole in the upper part of the back of the bowl, put in a tube, and then he had a little pump in the attic that
it was actually a little flat fan that he would pull from the draw side of the fan, which would through the tube take it up and put it into the attic.
So take the odor from the bowl through the tube up into the attic and disperse it up there.
Yep.
And I remember you saying he was very meticulous, like he had a job for you. You polished the grates or whatever it was.
The grills for they were the grills that were inside the toilet. If you stuck your head in the bowl, you could see this stainless steel grill that was about that big, about the size of a silver dollar, and that was
something somebody would never really see, but you were tasked with polishing them to make sure they were in good, shiny condition. Yeah. Because your dad believed in doing everything first rate.
Yeah, he was very meticulous, and there are some probably of his product today that's still working here in the valley. I rented, the last one I saw was in a golf course out in West Valley City. I went into the restroom and boom, I saw that it had it. I'd see that because I was aware. I knew about it. But yeah, that was his main income stream. And then of course the other one was my mother. My mother had a daycare, or worked for a daycare, or worked for a nursing home every day. And she was the most dependable income we had.
So let's get some background on your dad. He wasn't like allergic to money, he just didn't see the need to do it. He believed in being very self-sufficient, hence the fruit trees, the chickens, the goats, that kind of thing. And the reason why he was so allergic to money, or opposed to being wealthy, is because he was at one time?
Yes, it was his father's wealth. Grandpa Baldwin, Nathaniel Baldwin, is the person that invented headsets for radios.
He was a contemporary with Milo Farnsworth, right?
Yeah, in fact, Milo Farnsworth worked for him.
He worked for your dad,
yes.
Or grandfather. So
yeah.
Baldwin Radio, which used to be located in the Holiday area, is that right?
On today's trip, we're going to go by the old factory building, and we'll go see it.
Okay. But needless to say, Baldwin Radio got to be quite wealthy.
Yes.
And
right.
And then, well, I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit more, but that ended up, the money is the root of all evil kind of mentality for your dad. He ended up kind of going the other direction and not seeing a lot of need for those monetary things.
No, he was a minimalist for sure. But he took very good care of all of his equipment. Dad, when he would use a tool, before the job was done, that tool would be cleaned. It would be, if it was a tool that needed sharpening, it'd be sharpened before he put it away. And all of his tools were very meticulously stored. He knew exactly where every single one was. It was right where he expected it to be. And he used to accuse me of using a hammer, and as soon as the nail's in, just let go of the handle and walk away.
I resemble that. I remember a few times where my siblings, my sisters, would use a tool, leave it in the yard or whatnot, and then Dad come home and accuse me of not putting it away. So that's multi-generational there.
Yeah. Another thing, my dad, he didn't like to borrow someone else's stuff, but sometimes that would happen. He would borrow something from a neighbor, and when he would borrow it and use it, but before he returned it, he would completely service it. So the Dolars over here loved to lend things to my dad because he would mow the grass one time, and your mower would come back and the blade would be sharpened and everything in it, the points or the spark plug would be new, and because Dad borrowed it, that's the way Dad did it.
Well, you have a little bit of that philosophy too, and I try to do that as well, whether my kids realize it or not. For example, we're car guys, right?
Yeah.
So if you borrow one of the kids' cars, what happens?
Goes back full.
It goes back with a full tank of gas. And I've kind of done the same thing. If I ever have a situation with, I have one of my kids' cars, I make sure it's full when it goes back. And, you know, if sometimes it's washed and that kind of thing too.
Yeah.
But I've never said it out loud, but those of you that might be watching this, if you ever borrow my car and it comes back full, I'm very proud. I never require that of you, but if you pick up on that, that is something that, you know, you don't want to have to be preachy as a parent, but if you borrow my car and it comes back less than the same amount of gas on it, that's a strike against you when it comes time to the will and inheritance.
Yeah. Well, I'm not planning on any inheritance, so don't worry about it. I'm going to go in dead broke. That's okay.
Well, anyway, we're digressing a little bit here, but so your dad, tool and die maker, invention on the side, and
he actually had a lot of different inventions. In fact, my dad would love some of these inventions that have gone really, really big because he had them in the 50s. He had the one where he had a machine that would virtually stretch him. And he was very much into physical ed. He had different types of machines that he created that now, you know, the Health Rider and the ellipticals, all of those things. Dad had his version of those. They weren't as pretty, but they accomplished the same thing. He was very much into that. He also loved to hike, and he loved to run. And
should we touch on your dog? Because your dad would
Sure.
take the dog out running, and what did he do?
He'd run the dog down, and he'd have to carry the dog home.
And what was the dog's name?
That one was the original dog, and the one that is, if you say dog to me, that I go back to, is Arthur. Arthur was a English sheepdog. She was uglier than sin, but she absolutely loved us all. And one time, the local doctor, Dr. Trowbridge, who delivered me, by the way, but he came to the house to make a house call. That's old-fashioned, I know, and he gave my sister Julia a penicillin shot, and my sister cried. And when he walked out the door, Arthur took him down. And the people, we used to have meter readers that would come around once a month and read your water meter and your electric meter, and Arthur didn't like them, so that you'd see them out at the front gate. We had a chain link fence, but the front gate saying, Mrs. Baldwin, will you get your dog? Because they were terrified of him. Mail carriers, anybody in a uniform.
I'm sorry, is Arthur a male or a female dog?
She was a female.
Okay, female dog.
But she used to go run with Dad. But then Dad, we virtually always had a dog. And whatever dog it was, the one thing Dad would do was take it with him, because the dog People hated to go running with him because he'd go 10 miles and most of them couldn't go 10 feet. But he'd take the dog, and like I say, he'd go up here in the foothills and run and walk and hike, and many times he had to bring the dog back, carrying the dog back, because the dog was completely tuckered out. But again, we played in this field a lot, and one of my early jobs when I was 10 years old, down on 5th West, which is a main thoroughfare. Back then it was actually one of the highways. We had 2 highways that ran north and south, 89 and 101. And that used to be 101, 5th West, before the freeway. But we had a fruit stand down there that we used to go down and we'd sleep out at night. Then we'd sneak down the fruit stand and crawl in there real quiet, hijack a few watermelons and some drinks, and the old guy that owned it would be sleeping on the porch. And he did have a shotgun, and there were a time or two he fired off a warning shot, but no one ever got shot. Well, we used to do that. Over here where the church is, that used to be a peach orchard, and the Baldwins owned that peach orchard, and there was, on this edge, there was a lot of plum trees, and we used to like to get in those plum trees and throw plums at cars, and cars would stop, and we'd hightail it through the peach trees and never got caught. Another one that I may have told you about is there used to be a cedar fence over here at the Ace house. And when I was 10 years old, my dad and I went to Denver to get our very first new car. And he and I took the bus over and drove this Rambler, 56 Rambler station wagon back. And on that trip, we stopped out in eastern Utah and to eat our lunch. I remember that we had hot dogs, and we had cherries, and we had milk. That isn't a real good combination, guys. But anyway, and while we're sitting there in this cedar grove of trees, Dad and I, and this is one of the very few times that Dad and I ever spent much time together, but he got reminiscent about when he was a boy, and he said, these cedar trees, he says, they make really good cigarettes.
He told you that?
Yeah. And we took the paper bag that we got from buying the hot dogs and the cherries, and he showed me how to pull this strip off these cedar trees, roll it in your hands like that, and then take the paper and roll the cigarette up, lick the edge, and fire it up. So that was the very first time I ever smoked.
Your dad, of all people, taught you how to smoke.
Yeah. But what he didn't realize is that Craig Hummel over here, he had a cedar fence. And when I got home and showed everybody in the neighborhood how to make cigarettes, we smoked that fence. I think if you go over there right now, you might find in the ground where those cedar posts were, but they're gone. But we smoked that fence. That was how that started.
At what, 10 years old?
Yep. 1956.
So you can thank your dad for that.
9 years old.
Now, I guess for context,
yeah,
the Word of Wisdom, obviously, which is part of the LDS faith,
absolutely,
had been certainly around since the
long before that
1800s.
Yeah.
But from a temple recommend standpoint, it was really the local authorities, bishops, stake presidents, decision on whether or not you could still have your temple recommend if you were drinking coffee or smoking or alcohol or something like that.
Yep.
And so it wasn't until the mid to early 80s that the church cracked down and said things like you have to be a full tithe payer and you have to be true to the word of wisdom,
Yep.
or you don't get your recommend.
Yep.
Okay, because I'm sure that'll come up a little bit later as well. But
Okay.
But your dad, needless to say, you said that you remember him having a cup of coffee one time.
Oh, yeah, that was on a family trip to Los Angeles.
So he did it for municipal purposes, right? He was falling asleep and needed a cup of coffee to keep him awake. For the
He
stimulation.
thought that would help. He didn't know. He'd never had it before.
Yeah, so, I mean, your dad was a pretty religious guy,
Oh,
and
very.
so for him to teach you how to smoke, it was really probably off the rails a little bit, right?
Oh,
Just
absolutely.
a dark time, not a dark time, that's the wrong way to say it, but
In fact, it's for me, Robert, it's not a dark time. It was one of those moments.
no, I meant, I didn't mean dark time, I meant like kind of a black sheep moment. Here's your dad, this good, very religious guy, and he's going off the rails and teaching you how to smoke, something that is against your faith, his faith, your faith, and yet for some reason or another, he's bonding with you over this.
Yeah. Well, he was telling me about stories and how he and Shirley Debenham and there were two brothers, Shirley and I don't remember, but anyway, that were his buddies when he was a kid, like Dennis and Dee and Craig were with me, and some of their adventures. Dad. Not to get off on a tangent here, but Dad was shot twice, both times by himself.
He shot himself?
Yeah, not on purpose, but he shot himself.
Like he was cleaning a gun or something that went off?
He was climbing a fence.
Oh, okay.
And it was a barbed wire fence, and his rifle, .22 rifle, didn't have a trigger guard on it. So when he lifted the rifle over, it went off, and he went to his grave with the bullet still in him. They never took it out. And then another time, he was basically cleaning his gun or something, but it went off and shot him in the hand. So he got shot twice. But he grew up in a time where his father was very wealthy, and Dad had his first new car, and I tried to follow in his footsteps because I got my first new car when I was a teenager too. But Dad rode his bike from Salt Lake to Chicago when he was 17. And
by bike, you mean bicycle?
Bicycle, yeah.
Okay. Because I know that I'm sure we'll touch on stories, because your dad served a mission to the British Isles, right?
Yes.
And
George Romney.
Yeah, George Romney was his companion, and they were both from wealthy families, and so they had the brainy idea what?
Well, they could get around a lot faster if they had motorcycles instead of bicycles. So they went and bought motorcycles.
So two rich kids, one missionaries in the 1920s?
28,
29, zooming around the British Isles on motorcycles until when? Until the mission president?
Until the mission president found out about it.
So, anyway.
There is a picture in, if you go on Family Search, there's a picture, maybe even two, of Dad and George Romney that went back when they were missionaries.
George Romney, is that Mitt Romney's dad?
Yes.
Okay, so Mitt Romney, who is...
We might use this somehow, but...
Okay.
Anyway, yeah.
So they're zipping around the British Isles in motorcycles until the mission president kiboshed it.
Yeah, it didn't last long, but yeah, he went to the British Isles and he liked that. I did a good job, I'm sure. He corresponded by mail with different people that he had met on his mission up until probably that I remember very vividly that was the case up until we moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and that was the summer I was 11.
So this house, eminent domain,
Yeah.
gets sold, and you guys decide to use that money and go to Phoenix?
Dad did, yeah. Dad hated the cold as bad as I do, and he always wanted to be in a warmer climate. And the opportunity presented itself that my older brother Lloyd, when he got out of the Navy, he ended up going on a mission to Northern California, and he met a gal that he was pretty intense relationship with them, and their parents lived in Phoenix, and I don't remember what the tragedy was, but there was some kind of a tragedy. Somebody died or somebody was sick, but we went down there one winter to visit the Merriweathers was their name, and we trooped down there, and when we came back, Dad got the brainy idea he wanted to move there, and we were going through this ultimate that we were going to lose the house. So Dad moved us all to Phoenix, Arizona, but he didn't do that until May. We went down there in May, and we stayed there until September. And I mean, you want to talk about hot. But down there it was all right. We didn't have air conditioning. We had a swamp cooler, and I got one of the worst colds in my life while we were there from going air conditioning out in the hot, air conditioning out in the hot. It caused a problem, but it was a good experience. I landed a job there at the rec center, and I had a little experience doing that earlier here in Utah, but I made enough money that summer to buy my first bicycle. I'd never had a bicycle until then. I had a tricycle, and I used to steal Anna's bike once in a while, but that was my first bike, and I bought it down in Phoenix.
So how long did you guys stay there? Just for that summer?
Just that
and decided
summer.
It was too hot. So
well, not only that, the business, Dad had some business down there, but it didn't really take off at all. And he actually was getting calls for people to come up here and work. And Mom just had a heart attack when he said, well, you guys stay here in Phoenix, and I'm going to run back to Utah and work for a few months.
She didn't like that idea.
That didn't work. And when we were there, we had two other foster kids that we got when we were there. They were both small toddlers, and one was an American Indian, one was a little white. I think they were both girls, but they were with us for a while there. Kind of a supplement income is what that was. This sounds crazy, but we got $50 a month, or my parents got $50 a month for taking care of Kathy and Carol Kemner. And when we went down there, they got another $50 a month for taking care of these two babies. So for $100 a month, they provide room, board, everything for 4 people. Not good economics, in my opinion. But anyway, that was Phoenix. Phoenix, I got to play baseball down there. That was kind of fun. My baseball skills drastically improved that summer. I had some good coaches down there.
Who got you your first baseball mitt?
Myself.
You bought it yourself with the paper route money, or what?
Yep, that or no. I think then I was working for Bountiful City Recreation at Bountiful Elementary School over here in the summer. They had this craft store, where you could go in and you could do leather work and boondoggle and paint ceramics and stuff like that. And I was the little helper dude behind the counter, making change and helping where I could. And I also umpired girls softball games, and that was one of my early jobs. My first job, and I plan to show you this one today, is Bangerter's, is where I worked picking fruits and vegetables. My absolute specialty was green beans. Charlie Bangerter, he liked the way I picked green beans because I was little and I didn't have to bend over so bad. I didn't beat up his plants as much.
So how old are you?
That was when I was 5.5, 6.
5.5, 6 years old, and you're picking green beans for how many hours a day?
Well, we'd go 6 o'clock in the morning and we'd be done by about 1 o'clock.
So 5-year-old, 6-year-old working from 6 to 1.
Yep.
Okay.
And my sisters were there too. You know, Anna was there. And
so the whole household really contributed to the bottom line.
They had to.
Because your dad, again, I'm not saying that he was adverse to money, but he would figure out exactly what he needed to earn, and that was all the more he'd go after? What?
My dad had worked 2 days a week because he couldn't make it on one.
And then your mother would pick up the slack with the daycares and
everybody
and everything,
yeah.
And then all the kids and whatnot.
Yep. We worked.
As a result, I think each of the kids became very industrious at an early age, right?
Oh,
I mean,
no question.
Roy and Lloyd were out of the house about as quick as they could get out.
Well, that's another story. Yes, you know, when my dad's philosophy is that it was his job to provide for you until you got out of high school. When you got out of high school, he presented you with a bill. He said, "Here's what it costs, and you got to pay." And
so he wasn't necessarily looking for back wages, like, hey, for the last 17 and a half years, I've taken care of you, here's your bill. He's saying from this day forward,
yes,
here's what rent would be and utilities,
yes,
and the grocery bill. So if you're going to live here, you're going to pay this.
Yes.
So he basically motivated your older brother to join the Navy.
Absolutely. My Lloyd went from high school graduation to the Navy. And Roy didn't wait for high school to end. He did like I did. He didn't get it legally like I did, but he left when he was 16. And
so he emancipated himself.
Yeah, that's really what he did. And
in 16, that would have been he would have been in the 50s, right?
Yep.
When he was 16.
If you go again on family search under Kelvin Baldwin, and he's got some journal pages in there, and those the ones that they happen to got. I know that Dad destroyed a lot of his journals, and I that was before he died, but I don't know why he did, but he did. But this particular section that they have that's on there is when Lloyd and Roy were not paying up, and he was mad at them. He was fighting with them because they wouldn't pay. They were both working. At that time, Lloyd was working for John DeWall over in a body shop over on 4th North, and Roy was working for Schlumoltens, and they were making good money, and they both had cars. And
yeah, I would, from what I gather, they were probably making more money than your dad.
Yeah.
Each were making more money than your dad, so
yes,
that's why he's frustrated that they're not sharing the wealth if they're living under his house.
Yep. And another wild one for Dad was insurance. Dad did not believe in insurance. His interpretation of what the gospel wants is that you trust in the Lord. You don't trust in the arm of flesh or in his case, insurance. Dad only bought the insurance that was required and the minimum amount. He absolutely detested insurance. And he wasn't real fond of medical people. And that's the reason why he didn't make it till only 69. No. But, yeah, that was a struggle for me. And in some ways it still is. Though I see myself trying to pick through and trying to use some of the really good things about Kelvin. He was a good guy. He meant no harm to anybody, and he would, you know, I mean, the ultimate that I've told you this one probably before. We were coming back from California, and Dad did the coffee to try to stay going because he was going to drive all the way through, but he couldn't, and we finally hit Nephi, and he found this little dump of a...
So you guys are coming up Highway 50 then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Dad found this little dive of a place. It was terrible. And he got a room just basically so he could sleep, because he needed to sleep so that he could finish the drive. In fact, I think we were there maybe 4 hours, 5 hours at most. But we drove after he finally woke up and said, I felt good. And he drove in to Bountiful. When we got here, he looked at his receipt and he realized that the person at the motel had given him too much change. It was less than $5, I'm sure. But Dad jumped back in the car and took me with him to keep him awake. And we drove back to Nephi and returned that money to that person. That's the kind of guy he was. That's just what he was. He was impeccably honest. And yeah, he never wrote a contract with any of the work that he did. He always did it on a handshake. And to my knowledge, in fact, he used to maybe even boast a little bit about this. He said, I think I'm a good judge of people because if I don't trust somebody, I don't want to do business with them. And so he collected. His receivables came in. He had very, very, very little loss, if any. Yeah, that was just. I remember one time going out with my dad. My mother forced Dad to take me a lot of times because she just felt I needed, I guess. But anyway, I'd go out with him on sets where he'd go out and pitch the product in a person's home. Mm-hmm. And this one house we're at, and I remember, I kind of remember where it was, and I also remember who the client was. The client was a medical doctor. Certainly had the ability to buy the product. But all of a sudden, Dad just kind of clicked. He's down on the floor demonstrating his product, and all of a sudden he starts folding things up. And I'm thinking, what you doing? And he packs up and he says, this product just isn't for you. This isn't going to work. And he pulled out. And when I got outside, I said, why'd you do that? He says, I don't want to work for those people. I don't trust them. That's just kind of the way he was.
Here, I'm going to pause real quick here and just see if all this that we've talked about we can hear and everything. So.
Okay.